Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Top Level Sports NFL Weekly Talk Show Direct Snap. As always, I'm your host, Connor Groel, here to walk you through everything going on in NFL Week 6. Thanks for tuning into the show, Costa. That was a quick one. As you can see, today we're going to be talking about a few of the headlines from last week before breaking into the NFL Power Rankings for Week 6 and checking out a few of the games of the week, the 3 games that I think will be the best to watch this week, and then closing out, as always, with the game predictions. So as we give a couple minutes for people to join the stream, I'll just run through the games in Week 6 for you. Got the Eagles and the Giants playing in a big rivalry matchup, big game for that NFC East on Thursday night. And then Sunday, that 1 o'clock slate, 1 o'clock Eastern time, noon Central. Bucks, Falcons, Steelers, Bengals, Chargers, Browns, Bills, Texans, Bears, Dolphins, Cardinals, Vikes, Colts, Jets, Seahawks, Raiders, Panthers, Redskins. Then that afternoon slate, Rams, Broncos, Jaguars, Cowboys, and Ravens, Titans, Chiefs, Patriots, playing the game of the week. Spoiler alert, that will be my game of the week on Sunday night before the Niners and Packers close things off on Monday. Thanks for tuning into the show, Mike. Thanks for tuning in the show, Dad. Lions and Saints are the 2 teams on bye this week. We'll see if it cools them down because both of them had incredible performances in Week 5. But without further ado, let's head into the show. I'm going to start things off, as I said, with the headlines. And here we are. So just a few of the major stories coming out of Week 5. Thanks for tuning into the show, Sumit and Sumitra. Drew Brees, obviously, this has to be the number one, becoming the NFL's all-time passing leader Monday night against the Redskins, doing it in incredible fashion, passing both Brett Favre and Peyton Manning for number one on the all-time list. And Drew Brees just went off in that game. Incredible performance. Kasab, I gave you a shout out. Maybe you didn't hear it right at the beginning of the show when you joined in, but I'll give you another one. Thanks for tuning in the show, Kasab. And thanks for everybody tuning in right now on Facebook Live. So as I was saying, Drew Brees, again, this was an incredible performance from the Saints doing it. This is the ideal way Drew Brees wanted to do it, in a big game in front of the home crowd. You know, he's been with the Saints for well over a decade at this point, just routinely throwing in 5,000-yard seasons. Feels like he's kind of immortal. Another one of those aging quarterbacks, 39 years old, in that same category, you know, with the Tom Bradys of the world, just Peyton Manning before he retired, just really extending their careers and, you know, proving they can play great football, you know, until age 40 and even beyond with Brady at this point. And when you think about Drew Brees, this was a really, you know, this is really unexpected. And I find it funny that a lot of the quarterbacks that are the NFL greats, you know, are kind of unexpected. Brett Favre started with the Falcons and then, you know, moves to the Packers and then becomes great. You know, Aaron Rodgers sits behind Brett Favre for a few years before taking the reins. Tom Brady infamously, you know, what was he, like the 211th draft pick or, you know, something around there. Drew Brees, a guy only had 2 scholarship opportunities coming out of high school, and, you know, a shorter quarterback, definitely an idol for guys like Russell Wilson. So great for Drew Brees, absolutely deserving. Again, the consistency of this guy's career has been incredible, and he sets the record, you know, on a 60-yard passing touchdown. Saints win that game 43-19. Brees, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, 26 for 29 passing. I think that was the highest completion percentage of his career, about 90%. Moving on to the rest of our headlines from this week. Giants put on a great comeback against the Panthers in the fourth quarter of that one, but Graham Gano devastates the Giants with a 63-yard game-winning field goal, tied for the second longest kick in NFL history. and tied for the longest game-winning kick ever. Longest game-winning kick, in the last 40 years. Thanks for tuning in the show, Mom. So Graham Gano with the huge kick, and that's not even the first time Graham Gano's done the Giants, and with a game-winning field goal, did the same thing. Not quite 63 yards, but a 40-yard shot in 2015. And I wrote an article, actually, about the Giants that was published this morning, kind of about, these trends with the Giants. Very funny. This is the 5th time the Giants have lost to a game-winning kick in the last few seconds of a game since 2015. Back-to-back years where they lose to a game-winning 60-plus yard field goal. Jake Elliott of the Eagles nailed them with a 61-yarder last season. Very up-and-down game. Odell Beckham, very up-and-down game. That was actually the main focus of that article, but also Saquon Barkley becoming just the 3rd rookie to have 100 scrimmage yards in his first 5 games of his career. So some positives for the Giants, but also some negatives, and Graham Gano takes the win. I love the Cam Newton quote from after that game. He said, "A wise man once told me a quarterback is only as good as his kicker." And Graham Gano and Cam Newton were both pretty good in that one. Isaiah Crowell sets the Jets rushing record for a single game, 219 yards. Pretty incredible, as the Jets absolutely run over the Broncos in a huge win. And when you think about Crowell in that game, he only needed 15 carries to do it, breaking a couple huge ones. Talking 50, 60-plus yard rushes in that game. That's right, Mike. Tom Dempsey was that kicker, I believe, for the Saints, maybe against the Saints. I'll try to get the official on that. But yeah, he was the other guy with a 63-yard game-winning field goal. Yeah, Saints, a 1917 win over the Lions back in 1970. And that was the longest kick in NFL history for over 40 years until Matt Prater broke it a few seasons ago. And then lastly, the Browns avoid a tie. Browns actually, sneak peek, will be the subject of my next article. We'll try to get that one out, I don't know, maybe tomorrow or Friday. Browns have been, ludicrous this season. Every game the Browns have played has been ridiculous. They've almost tied 3 times. Since the NFL-AFL merger, a team's never had 2 ties in a season. Browns have nearly done it 3 times in 5 games. 2 games have been decided in the last minute or 2 of overtime. So they avoid another tie, beat the Ravens. Great play from Baker Mayfield. It's only a 12-9 game. Very low scoring. Very different from what you'd expect. The Ravens are a team that had scored 20 or more points in the last 20 games or so. But the Browns able to shut them down. But the Browns are, I'm really excited to see what we will see from the Browns for the rest of this season, because this is already their best season in a while. They got 2.5 wins under their belt, feeling good about it. But just the manner it's happened is crazy. Obviously, the ties start the season against the Steelers with both teams missing field goals in overtime. They really should have won the game against the Saints. They blow a 4th quarter lead, and then Zane Gonzalez missed a few kicks, and he ends up getting cut for Greg Joseph, who kicked the game winner against the Ravens. But also that comeback win against the Jets in Baker Mayfield's first half of play, and just the ridiculousness in that overtime game against the Raiders in Week 4. So Browns playing in a ton of exciting matchups so far. And, if this is the way the Browns season's going to go, we know the football gods hate the Browns. But even in a season where the Browns look pretty talented, the football gods are making them work for absolutely everything. Those are the main highlights from Week 5 for me, which means it's time to head into the power rankings, 1 through 32. Once again, this is based off of my confidence in a team winning a game next week. And let's see where we stand 5 weeks through the season. Bottom of the list, it's the Niners, and what can you expect? When you give the Cardinals their first win of the season, the Cardinals were the last team to pick up a win when you give them that win, when you're at home and your starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, is gone with an ACL injury, there's no other place you're going to end up on the rankings besides number 32. And we see most of those 1-4 teams clinging towards the bottom of the rankings. The Raiders just getting squashed by the Chargers. I thought it might be a little closer. Chargers are usually not one for blowing people out. They usually, have to work for it one way or another. Bills picking up their second win of the season. Pretty ridiculous. Bills games, they either get absolutely demolished, or, they crush the Vikings, and now a really close one against the Titans. In my opinion, neither team deserved to win that game. Titans had a wide receiver drop a wide open touchdown in the fourth quarter. They had to settle for a field goal, which meant that the Bills only needed a field goal to take back the lead instead of a touchdown. And Josh Allen leads the game-winning drive. And the kick goes in for, I believe, Steven Hauschka is the kicker for the Bills these days. I believe he still is. Yeah. So we see the Giants falling 3 spots, following that close loss to the Panthers. Colts dropping as well. Broncos getting crushed by the Jets, sending themselves way down. I believe the Broncos are actually 2-3, did not update that. And the Dolphins as well. 3-0, had a strong start to the season, but in these last 2 games, really, they were up 17-0 actually against the Bengals in this one, but they ended up falling 27-17, allowing the last 27 points of that game. I am sorry, Dad, the Giants are not quite the best 1-4 team, because as we move on to the next segment, you will see the Falcons at 23. The Falcons are a team, for me, even when they were, 1-2, I still thought pretty highly of them. 1-3, they were still in the top half, but a team, that definitely, their offense is a top 10 offense, maybe even a top 5 offense, but their defense just can't stop anybody. This was going to be a big game against the Steelers. Falcons and Steelers matched up pretty similarly, but they actually just get crushed 41-17 in that game. So they tumble way down until they can figure out how to get it together, which I think they will do this week actually against the Bucs in Jameis Winston's first start of the season. But for now, Falcons are way down there. Jets moving up, good for them. Texans, 2 wins in a row. I would be lying if I said either one of them were in particularly convincing fashion, but, they'll take the 2 dubs. The team that actually lost last week but moved up, the Seahawks, to a 2-3 team, but put up the best fight of anyone so far this season against the undefeated Rams. Only lost that one 33-31 at home. Nearly pulled off a huge upset. And look at the Browns, up 10 spots. I'm really feeling the Browns this season. Who knows what their potential is, Playoffs is still in the picture. This is a team, the refs, a few unfortunate calls, likely cost them that game against the Raiders. And kicking cost them the game against the Saints and the game against the Steelers. A few plays go the opposite direction. The Browns could be 5-0 right now. This is a legit team. It's a legit team this year from the Browns. Top half of the power rankings, we see the Eagles sliding all the way down to 16. Your defending Super Bowl champions have not been able to get anything going this season, unfortunately. So they continue their tumble. Lions, opposite the Eagles, moving way up 8 spots, following a emphatic victory over the Packers. Well, maybe not so quite emphatic by the end of the game, but forced several turnovers and built up a huge lead early on. They do take the win 31-23, but they'd led it 24-0 at halftime. And of course, like Aaron Rodgers does, he finished this with 442 yards and 3 touchdowns, just, marching down the field every single play of that second half. Of course, the real loser in this game for the Packers was Mason Crosby, the kicker, costing them this one, missing 4 field goals and an extra point. Mason Crosby, a longtime kicker for the Packers, many people calling for him to be released following that performance. I disagree. When you've been the kicker for, about 10 years or so, as Mason Crosby has been for this team, I think you're afforded one bad game, but this is just about as bad of a game as any kicker will ever have. Is this a year full of mediocrity, Dad? Well, I would have to agree with that. I think we see the Chiefs and the Rams have been the 2 dominant teams this season. But outside of that, it feels like anyone can beat any team in any week. We see a lot of these teams, the Vikings 2-1. Moving up, they've had their fair share ups and downs. So have the Steelers, so have the Packers, so have the Titans. Really, every single team you see in this 9-16 has had their share of ups and downs, as have most of these teams in the league. Chargers moving up to number 9. Their only 2 losses are against the Chiefs and the Rams, those 2 5-0 teams. So I'm giving them a bit of a benefit of the doubt here, putting them above some similar record teams like the Ravens, like the Titans, and some teams that have played really well as of late, like the Steelers. Because strength of schedule. I mean, they haven't looked great in all of their wins, but they looked pretty nice against the Raiders in that 26-10 victory. Top 8, the Bengals cracking into the top quarter. The Bengals were a team that I did not have high hopes for at the beginning of the season, and I don't think many people did. But they're finally starting to prove it. The first couple games, is this just a fluke? Who are the Bengals? But at this point, after that big comeback win against the Dolphins, the Bengals look real, man. And a win against the Steelers this week would really set the Bengals apart as the team to beat in that AFC North and one of the best teams in the AFC. Bears moving up a couple spots on their bye, moving past the Ravens and moving past the Packers. Yep. Top 5 remains mostly unchanged. Jaguars drop into 6 with their loss last week against the Chiefs. And you can lose games to the Chiefs, but the Jaguars just did not look very good doing it. Actually, were stopped at the goal line on a couple of 4th downs, so it could have been a bit closer, but just another big performance from the Chiefs as that 1-2 stays unchanged, and I doubt it will change too much this season. Now we are reaching a point where it feels like these top 5, these top 6 teams are starting to maybe set themselves apart a little bit. And we have, the Bears could break into that. The Bengals could continue to break into that. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of division at the top, separating themselves from the rest of the pack. But, who knows? The way the season's gone, all of these teams in the top 8 will lose next week. And I'll get them all wrong in the pick'em. That's the power rankings. Moving on to the games of the week. Top 3 games of the week. And a few early thoughts on each of them. I'll level with you guys. This is not a great week for matchups. Again, like I've already said, that Chiefs-Patriots game will be the big one this week. But outside of that, really tough to find must-watch games. There are a lot of good games. That Panthers-Redskins game should be good. That Bears-Dolphins game, the Dolphins are at home, so maybe they can put up a bit of a fight against the Bears. Chargers-Browns would all be another interesting contest, but no real blockbuster matchups. That Chiefs-Patriots matchup, the only matchup between 2 teams in my top 10 this week, as I frantically scroll through the list of games to make sure that's correct. And it is. So let's head into what I do think are the top 3 matchups. Again, anyone with Sunday ticket, or anyone looking to follow or stream some games, these would be the ones I would tune into. First one, Giants-Eagles, the NFC big rivalry matchup. It's going to be a good one. The Giants are at home, building, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but a bit of momentum with a good game against the Panthers. First time their offense hit 30 points over 2 seasons. Up against a reeling Eagles team. And the records are not good with these teams. Neither one has played near close to their potential so far. But when you look at the NFC standings, as I have here, the division is wide open. So if any one of these teams can, run through the division, beat all their division foes, grab a hold of those tiebreakers, or just get any momentum going whatsoever, at this point, 9-7 looks like a fair bet to take the division. And any one of those teams can reach that number. So this is going to be a big one. The Eagles just lost Jay for the season, the running back. Or actually, I'm sorry, they lost the other running back. Hold on. Or no, it is JJ. Yeah. Okay. Eagles lose JJ for the season, so their offense will be a bit limited. Starting to hear talks about them trading for Le'Veon Bell. As a Giants fan, I do not want to see that. But it could be an appealing option for both sides. The Eagles trying to get some depth back at running back right now. Corey Clement looks like he might be the lead man. And on the Steelers side, they've been trying to franchise tag Le'Veon Bell, lowball him here and there. But James Conner has had a great start to the season. And I don't think he's Le'Veon Bell caliber. That would be a bit ridiculous for me to say. But he has played very well, and he's over 500 scrimmage yards, and he's having a similar type of impact. And do you really want to have 2 great running backs at the same time where you have to split carries with both of them? It'd be a great problem to have, but you can get a lot of value. You can get a ton of value off of Le'Veon Bell. He's the number 1 running back in the league. So interesting to see. I know a lot of teams are interested in Le'Veon Bell. Heard the Jets were last week, but after the big performance from Groel, who knows? But anyways, this should be a really great matchup. I'll be looking forward to it on Thursday night. And definitely a close one, and one with huge division implications as we head into number 2, another game with potential division implications. Steelers taking on the Bengals. And all of a sudden, the AFC North looks like the best division in football. You can see those standings. We just saw the NFC East, where no team is above 500. Here's the AFC North, where no team is below 500. Bengals and the Browns both having better than expected starts to the season. Ravens looking solid. And the Steelers, the team everyone pegged to be the best team in the division, is currently in last place with the tiebreaker, but still has a great offense and still showed their best game of the season last week against the Falcons. And it's still pretty early. We're only a third of the way through this thing, and the Steelers could pretty easily still take this division. They're going to need to win a lot of games, no doubt about it. They're going to need to at least hit 10-5-1, maybe even 11-4-1 to take that division. And they're going to need to beat the Bengals, which is why the road contest against the Bengals is so important. And this is a big opportunity. Le'Veon Bell is slated to return following the Steelers' Week 7 bye, so this is going to be their last game in his absence. Can they continue that momentum from the Falcons game? Can the Bengals separate themselves from the pack in this division even more so and really prove that they're going to be a contender this season? This is a game I expect to have a lot of points, as you'll see in my prediction coming up. Both these high-powered offenses. It should be very exciting. And in my opinion, out of all the games happening in that first Sunday slate, this is the one that I'd be tuning into. Especially if you're a fantasy player. A lot of things are going to happen in that one. But obviously the number 1 game of the week has to be the Chiefs and the Patriots. Both of these teams with big wins last week, as you can see. The Chiefs beating the Jaguars 30-14, and the Patriots over the Colts 38-24. Both teams taking games at home. And what really surprised me about this Chiefs win against the Jaguars is that, yes, the Chiefs scored 30 points like they have in every week. But this is a game where Pat Mahomes did not play particularly well. He threw his first 2 interceptions of this season. He finishes this game, actually does cross the 300-yard marker, much of that coming in the second half, and he did have a rushing touchdown. But his completion percentage not too high. The Chiefs had been a team that was scoring a ton of points, but also allowing a ton of points. And this week it was a different story as their defense actually showed up. It looked a little more like a Rams game, just in terms of holding teams to fewer points. Actually a bit of a role reversal with the Rams allowing 30 points for the first time this season, something the Chiefs had done several times in their victories. But you saw a pick 6 at Bortles, again, a couple 4th down stops, and a defense. If the Chiefs defense can start rolling, they're going to be near unstoppable. But of course, they take on the Patriots in Foxborough, and Patriots 2 big wins in a row after everybody, started freaking out at the 1-2 Patriots. It's something you can't do with the Patriots. You just can't sell them short. Edelman is now back, and Tom Brady looking as great as ever, as always. Actually, he's throwing a lot of interceptions this season, but it's not really his fault. The couple interceptions you saw in that Colts game did come off of deflections off the receiver's hands. Those kind of picks the quarterback has no say in, and I do wish they had a separate category for those kinds of interceptions, because it's not really fair for the quarterback when they throw a great ball and it just, bounces off the receiver's hands up into the air and live ball, and that's going to the safety 9 times out of 10, it feels like. But the Patriots, now tied with the Dolphins in that AFC East, have a chance, with the Dolphins' loss and a win, to seize back control of first place, sole control. They did beat the Dolphins, so they do have the division lead with the tiebreak right now. But these are 2 of the best teams in football, and if the Chiefs can get out of this one with a win, that's back-to-back victories against the Jags and the Patriots, probably the 2 next best teams in the AFC. And for Pat Mahomes and that team, that would be huge. It would definitely set them apart as by far the top team in the AFC. Yeah, Mike, Patriots also with Josh Gordon picking up his first touchdown last week against the Colts. Brady's 500th. There's another huge milestone. But let's not act like that was the greatest play. I mean, it felt kind of lucky to me, to be honest with you. Brady under a lot of pressure. Actually, not really. Actually, I don't quite remember the pass rush on that play. But Brady held the ball for a long time, a long developing play, and he just kind of heaved it up into the end zone. And Josh Gordon, with a great play, beating 2 Colts secondary members and coming down with that ball. Was the Devlin one the 500? I'm not sure. I thought the Josh Gordon one was the 500, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. But this will be the number 1 game to watch in the NFL this season. This season. Well, who knows? It could be. But definitely this week. Heading into our final segment, the predictions. Again, this has been a tough week for me, or tough season for me so far, but an especially tough week against the spread. My goodness, it felt like I was going up against a guy with a heads I win, tails you lose coin on that one. Could not buy anything. Need to get a new coin. Trying to give myself some luck, switching up the color schemes. Like that'll do anything. Very superstitious writings on the wall. All right. Eagles-Giants, first game of the week, that Thursday nighter. It was, Gordon. Thanks. Getting that first one. And again, as I already said, a big game for the division. A big game for both of these teams' seasons. If the Giants lose this one, you can all about put a fork in them. Which is why they won't lose this one. I'm going to take my Giants at home, giving up the 3 points to the Eagles. But I'll take them for a 27-24 victory. I like the way the offense is trending. Looking to throw it downfield a little more. Not quite as conservative. And the Eagles, again, playing a lot of these, very mediocre games. And it's going to be tough for them moving forward unless they can really jumpstart themselves. This is a team that's kind of floundering for a Super Bowl champion. Buccaneers, Falcons. Again, the Falcons only 1-4, but our favorite 3.5 at home. Probably a large part of that being because of the fact that the Bucs lost by 40 in their last outing to the Bears. First start of the season again for Jameis Winston. Fitzmagic is dead. Fitzmagic on the bench. And you have to feel like this Falcons offense gets going at some point, right? Well, I should rephrase that. Compared to last week, where they had a horrendous performance. I think this is a team to do it against. You're at home. The Falcons have struggled at home this season, but they are at home. And again, the Bucs are reeling. And the Bucs, I don't think, are near as good as the first 2 games of the season would have made you think. And I'm going to like to take the Falcons for a bounce back, 28-23. Steelers-Bengals, like I was saying, my number 2 game of the week to watch. And I'm predicting a lot of points in this one. Like I said, I think they're going to be going at it. The Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, and Big Ben Roethlisberger. Should be a fun one. I'm going 30-27 Bengals, just sneaking them in with the spread, -2.5. I'll take them by 3. Looking to see the Bengals move to 5-1. And send the Steelers back, asking themselves questions. Back to the drawing board, it feels like every week for the Steelers. Chargers, Browns. Chargers 1-point favorites on the road. Browns looking to continue momentum following that Ravens game. In hindsight, I probably should have predicted an overtime game. Of course, a lot of overtime games this season. Normally, maybe 5% of the games go into overtime. But for the Browns, it's been 3 out of 5. Over 50%. This should be a pretty exciting one. Chargers, of course, looking pretty good last week against the Raiders. But I'm on the Browns bandwagon, and I'm going to take them. Looking to see the Browns move up to 3-2-1, and wouldn't that be something? See the Browns really put themselves in good position to make a playoff run. That's what everybody wants. Again, the Browns feel like everybody's second favorite team. Because how can you not love the lovable losers, the Cleveland Browns? 1-31 in 2 years, and they keep the head coach, and they start picking up lots of pieces, and those pieces are working out nicely. Thanks for tuning into the show, Pop, and everybody on Facebook Live right now as we are in our Week 6 predictions here on Direct Snap. Moving on to the Bills-Texans. After a couple weeks into the season, these looked like a couple of the worst teams in the league. I mean, neither one of them are world beaters at this point, but they're at least both have a couple wins. Texans still favored by 8.5. I find this hilarious. I find these Bills spreads hilarious. How bad Vegas thinks they are. And how bad I think they are. Because they lost 2 games to start the season, and then were 16.5. I believe they finished dogs against the Vikings the biggest underdogs we've seen this season, and then pulled off the biggest upset win. And now I forget the number. It's been a few weeks, but something like 20 years with their massive victory over the Vikings. Something like 27-6 or 27-7. So after that huge victory, they play the Packers the next week, and they're still like double-digit dogs. And again, it's been a few weeks, so excuse me for not knowing the exact numbers here, but they were like somewhere 10.5 maybe point dogs, and they get crushed. And then they go up against the Titans, and they're big dogs again, and they come up with a win, and now they're still big dogs against another 2-3 team. But it really does feel like even when the Bills win, it's kind of fluky. And they did it again, but this was such a boring, ugly game to watch. I mean, almost unbelievable in their game against the Titans. Neither team could do anything, just a punt fest that the Bills win on a last-second 13-12 field goal. So, Bills, not a team that's done anything really convincing for me. Even in the Vikings game, it just felt like this can't be real. Texans, of course, have won 2 games. The game the Colts gifted them in overtime. And, well, another overtime game against the Cowboys last week. And Texans, another team playing in overtime games. A couple back-to-back overtime games for them. I don't think this one will go to overtime. I'm going to give the Texans the win. But I'm not quite going to give them that 8.5. I'll take the Bills. I'll take the Texans straight up, but with the points, I'll take the Bills. Bears and Dolphins, as we continue rolling along. Bears are 3-point favorites on the road against a Dolphins team that, again, started 3-0, but since have lost a couple games to the Patriots and the Bengals by double digits. Bears coming off the bye. There's always the questions of, is the team going to play better rested after the bye, or will they, be a little slow out of the gates? I think the Bears can afford to be a little slow out of the gates. The Bengals certainly were against the Dolphins. But overall, the Bears are a much better team than the Dolphins for me. And I'm excited to see the Bears head to 4-1. Bears, big turnaround season for them. Khalil Mack leading the way, 28-21. My prediction. Cardinals, Vikings. Vikings favored big again. Will the Cardinals play a similar spoiler to the Bills? Vikings picking up a win, a big win for them against the Eagles to move themselves back up to 2-1 and keep themselves in contention with the rest of that division. Cardinals picking up the first one in the season on the road against the Niners. Not a particularly great performance by any means from Josh Rosen. 170 yards and a touchdown. But he got the victory. And you take victories in this league. So my prediction for this one. 27-19 Vikings. I don't quite have that confidence in them to really run away with the game. I feel like the Cardinals will probably keep it pretty close, actually, for the majority of this one. And then Cousins will throw in a couple good drives down the stretch to put it away. Colts, Jets. Our midway point of the predictions segment, 8th game out of the 15 taking place this week. Colts are a team that's without a lot of talent. T.Y. Hilton is supposed to miss this game, as is tight end Jack Doyle. The running game has not been great, and with limited targets for Andrew Luck, I like the Jets to take a 24-20 victory, back-to-back victories for the first time in Sam Darnold's career. Seahawks, Raiders. Well, I'm feeling an upset. That's right. Even at home, the Raiders are 3-point dogs, but I'll take them by 3 on the flip side, 24-21 over the Seahawks. Seahawks played a good game, actually, against the Rams. As I've already said, it moved them up in the power rankings. But I am a bit of a believer in the kind of revenge game, the back to your previous team game. Marshawn Lynch gets to see his former Seahawks come into town. And I like the Raiders have a much better performance than they did against the Chargers. Can't really provide a ton of insight into this one. I'm just kind of feeling it. Every now and again, you just kind of feel the upset. And would not be surprised at all to see the Raiders take this one. Originally, I thought I was going to take another upset here. But then I realized the Redskins were actually 1-point favorites. 27-23. The Redskins got destroyed by the Saints on Monday Night Football. But let's not act like the Panthers played a great game against the Giants. Needed a 63-yard field goal, a muffed punt touchdown to come away with that one. And the Redskins, for me, are going to look to establish themselves as that top team in the NFC East. Currently 2-2 with a half-game lead. But as I'll predict the Eagles and the Cowboys to both lose this week, the Redskins could take a 1.5-game advantage in what is currently a very tight division. Give themselves a little bit of room. Rams, Broncos. Broncos, after the quick 2-0 start, have lost 3 consecutively. And Case Keenum has not looked like the quarterback they wanted when they picked him up this offseason from Minnesota. Been pretty woeful as that offense has been up and down. The Rams, there's not much really I need to say about the Rams. I'm going to take them big, 34-20 in Mile High, at Mile High, to move on to 6-0. Jaguars, Cowboys. Cowboys kind of struggling. They did have that win against the Lions, but could not pull it out against the Texans on Sunday night. Now they get a home game, but it's against the Jaguars. And in my opinion, this Jaguars D, they got embarrassed a little bit against the Chiefs. This was supposed to be their huge game to prove that they can stop anybody. And instead, it's a 30-14 defeat. And they're going to be angry. We know this is a defense with a lot of pride. And I think they'll take it out on the Cowboys, 23-14. Holding Dak, Zeke, and company to just 2 scores on the day. Ravens, Titans. Ravens 3-point road favorites, similar to the Jaguars. I do think they'll come away with this victory. The Titans, over the last few seasons, have probably been the most unpredictable team in the NFL. I think if you were to go back and look at it, I think that's fair to argue. Last season, they went through a stretch of 8 or 9 weeks where they literally went loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. Even against teams they should have won, they lost, and vice versa. They do come into this one at 3-2, but losing to the Bills and looking pretty anemic in the process. Ravens look to continue their good defense, but turn it into a win this time around, 24-16. Just 2 games left, Sunday nighter, Chiefs-Patriots. And it's funny to me. The Patriots are favored by 3.5 in this one against an undefeated team. They are at home. I did pick against the Chiefs last week, and I got burned for it bad. It's very tempting to do so again this week. The Patriots have been looking great the last 2 weeks. So you know what? I'll take the Chiefs to lose again, and I'll hope that Tom Brady can take this one at home. I think he will. 31-27. Again, this is going to be a game with a lot of offense. And, one of these games, the Chiefs are going to go down. It's very interesting. I saw you can now bet on whether or not there will be an undefeated team in the NFL this season. We still have the Rams and the Chiefs at 5-0, obviously. And the odds were, I believe, like plus 700 or minus 1,500. So you're getting 7-1 odds if you want to bet on a team going undefeated this season, which is, absolutely ridiculous. We've only seen it happen once in NFL history, and we're only 5 weeks in, and we only got 2 teams still available. The Rams almost lost last week. The Chiefs have almost lost a couple times. I think that's a pretty ridiculous bet. But they set the odds that way because they know people will make the bet. Everybody wants to see an undefeated team. I don't think it'll happen, even with these talented Rams and Chiefs. I still think we'll probably end up the 2 best teams in the league by the season's end. I think the Chiefs are going to have to drop a couple in the process. And I think I used this kind of the same logic last week. If they're going to drop any game, the Jaguars, but the Patriots are real. I think I've called a lot of teams real in this week's show. But Patriots are the Patriots. You should never have to defend picking the Patriots to win a football game. So with that, I'll just stop talking about it and say Patriots 31-27. And then our last game of the night, our last pick of the night in this week's show will be the Monday Nighter, the Packers hosting the Niners. The Niners are the worst team in the league, which proves an excellent opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to absolutely crush somebody because he's angry. It's exactly what I think will happen. Last week, they struggled with the kicking game. I can guarantee Mason Crosby won't be that bad this week. Be very surprised to see him miss anything. And Aaron Rodgers getting back his wide receivers. Randall Cobb, Geronimo Allison, both missed last week. They should be both good to go. Last week, the Packers had to resort to a couple young receivers in their place. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Equanimeous St. Brown had a pretty good performance. I said Aaron Rodgers threw for well over 400, but he'll definitely be happy to get guys he's more comfortable with back in the lineup. And I just think the Packers are going to go nuts. And I'll call 37-20. The 49ers have had one of the worst defenses in the league this season. Over the last 4 games, they've allowed 27, 38, 29, and 28. And in Green Bay, it'll be very tough for them to change that streak of poor defensive performances. I just think the Packers are going to have a bit of a field day against the worst team in the league. So those are my picks for every game this season. Last but not least, questions as always. If you have anything for me, drop it down in the comments before we end this week's show. Actually, I don't have the picks up on the screen in this final slide, so I'll move back so you guys can see all of my predictions in case you got any questions about any games in particular. But if not, as always, we'll just give it a couple minutes here, and then I'll end the show. Of course, I'm Connor Groel, here for Top Level Sports and Direct Snap, the NFL weekly talk show, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time on Facebook Live. It is a very interesting stat, Mike, that the Chiefs are last in yards allowed. Kind of goes back to what I was saying about the Chiefs. They've scored a ton of points, but they've also allowed a ton of points, which is what made that game against the Jaguars such a big one for me over the the first 3 weeks of the season in particular. 38-28 win against the Chargers, 42-37 against the Steelers, 38-27 against the Niners. And in each of those games, just allowing a ton of yards. Did a little better against the Broncos, but really put in their first good defensive performance this season last week against the Jaguars in their most important game so far. All right, I'm not seeing anything coming in, so I'll be signing off. Connor Groel, Top Level Sports, Direct Snap. See you next week.